Hey guys, in this video, I want to talk about one of the most underutilized alternatives to doing a foam cannon wash in the direct sun. That's one of the most effective things a mobile detailer can do who doesn't have the luxury of an indoor studio or garage. This is without a doubt not one of the most popular things to say on YouTube or in the social media detailing world. But that being said, I think it's important as a pro detailer and as somebody who was mobile for most of my detailing career to have an honest conversation around a foam cannon wash in direct sun when you don't have a DI tank or the beauty of an indoor garage. The bottom line is this is one of the biggest objections that I have to address with guys who are in their first year to 2 years of the detailing business. The question is, how do I do a foam cannon wash in the sun? And for most people, they're kind of surprised by my answer because generally speaking, I just say, well, actually, you don't. There are a few things that I really want to highlight here. Number one, the first thing that anybody thinks of when they don't want to do a foam cannon wash in the direct sun is, of course, water spots. And water spots are just formed from the hard tap water you're using if you're hooked up to a client's hose or if you don't have soft water from a DI tank that you are using. Yes, water spots are one of the primary problems. Here's one of the other issues really nobody likes to talk about, and unless you've experienced it, you might not really know what I'm talking about. And that is what I would call like chemical staining or chemical burn that is particularly easy to do with even a softer, quote-unquote, pH-neutral soap in the direct sun. What ends up happening when you're washing something like black paint in direct sun, as opposed to, for example, this red Mini Cooper in a temperature and humidity-controlled studio and garage, is that the water and the soap dries so quickly, particularly in the summertime, you could call it like flash drying, and that soap scum that dries really fast, in addition to the water spots, is basically impossible to remove in certain situations. Number one, if it's dark paint. Number two, if it's oxidized clear coat, and number three, if it is at all a strong car soap that you're using. Well, the ironic thing and kind of the catch-22 you find yourself in is you need a strong enough soap to actually do some real work in the pre-foam stage, but if you use a strong soap in the pre-foam stage in the direct sun and it dries, then you're going to chemically burn the paint. So as a detailer, you're kind of up a creek without a paddle with no clear way on how to remedy this issue. So water spots number one, chemical burn number two, and thirdly, I just want to kind of highlight maybe like a flaw in logic here. If we're in a situation where we're in direct sun and we have to do things quickly and we can't use a very strong soap, then you have to kind of call into question as a pro detailer the efficacy of using a pre-foam solution in the first place, right? Because half of what I want to do with a pre-foam solution like you see in this red Mini Cooper, and again, because I'm in a humidity-controlled, temperature-controlled environment, I can just let the soap sit on the paint for as long as I want. Okay, great. That means that the more it sits on the paint, I mean, past a certain point, it doesn't matter, but the longer in some sense that it sits on the paint, the more effective it's going to be able to encapsulate, quote-unquote, all that dirt that I want to pull off. Well, if I'm having to do things really quickly outside in direct sun and I can't leave it on the paint in the first place, what is the point of even using this anyways? So those three reasons are kind of the primary things that happen to mobile detailers that I feel like don't get addressed on YouTube very often because often, people who are talking about are not necessarily pro detailers, so they just don't have the experience to, kind of have faced these problems in the first place. But again, these are things that I've run into often, and so it's something I really thought about how to remedy. So here is my primary solution for anybody facing this issue. The number one way that I like to wash cars in direct sun, and I'm going to make a little caveat here, this is about 80% of the time. This strategy is not necessarily what I do if I'm dealing with a higher end vehicle, though I also would say if I'm dealing with a much higher end vehicle, generally speaking, I'm not detailing it outdoors in the direct sun. So for the other 80% or 90% where it's more what I would call average details, even Mercedes, BMW, higher end cars that are still, driven on a daily basis, so we can just call this caveat daily driven vehicles, I'm going to use kind of an excess amount of Optimum No Rinse or some sort of rinseless wash that I love with a gallon of distilled water that I bought for 79 cents from the store and that I always keep stocked up on. So I'll pour the whole gallon into a bucket. I've got maybe 8 different microfiber towels dunked into the solution, and rather than using a cap full of Optimum No Rinse or a cap full of whatever rinseless wash that I'm using, even though I could only use that amount, I'm going to double or triple or quadruple the amount because I want to introduce as much lubrication as possible. I'm going to fold each microfiber towel into fourths. Some people call this the Gary Dean method, and I'm going to, each time I switch panels, flip to a new side of the microfiber, wipe it down, take a drying towel, go in between passes, drying off the paint, and then moving on with my life, making sure that I save the lower rocker panels for the very, very, very last minute. Not because I'm reintroducing the microfiber towels into my bucket after they're used. I'm not. I'm putting them into a waste bucket, and so my solution always stays, for lack of a better term, 100% pure. But The reason why I like to save the lower rocker panels for after is simply because it makes things go faster when things are systematized like that. At the end of the day, I know it's not the most popular thing to talk about, and it's not sexy on social media, but it is hyper effective in the real world of detailing. If you guys want to check out any of the tools or products I mentioned here, make sure to check out the YouTube description box below, as well as grab my free resource, the Pro Detailing Toolbox, that lays out all the tools and products that I use. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, from a pro detailer to other pro detailers, remember, a great detailer is always learning, and I'll see you in the next video.